Hello and welcome everyone. It is Daniel here, and I have a special guest joining me for the 2020 PBA League mock draft that we are doing together. So, to introduce you, let's bring it over here, and I have with me Alek, my good friend from College Station, Texas these days. How's it going, Alek?
It's going great, former league teammate. Life's been going great. It's been a little weird with the quarantine and everything, but we're in a golden age where there's so much information online. Where in the past, where you may have just been stuck and you may have already read all your books, there's just information galore. You can never have too much information nowadays. So we're probably at the easiest time period ever to be trapped inside.
That's a very good point, yes. So, let's kind of show everyone right here what we have going on as far as the players are concerned. So, on your screen, we're seeing all of the players that we have to choose from, our player pool, as it's called. And we're going to be going through this list, and we're going to be adding on to each team whichever person that we each select for each team. So, getting into this, let's go over to that screen. And alrighty, so by virtue of being my guest, I want to throw out a little disclaimer and say I will be giving Alek the first draft pick or first choice, and let him go first on all of the choices that we have. So there's a bit of fun news for you, Alek.
You are
um,
such a generous host. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir. And let's go ahead and I want to hear a little bit about yourself as well. Tell everybody who you are, Alek.
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm Alec. That's very shocking, I know. I know Daniel from when we bowled league in Lubbock, Texas for that one whole year before you went off to Ottawa. And I moved down to College Station. And ever since there, I've been bowling league. The 2 years that I bowled league in College Station, I qualified for junior gold. Of course, this year, um, coronavirus, it happens. But I can attest for my family, we've been staying inside, just trying to protect ourselves and make sure we don't cause the spread to get worse and cause us to be in a lockdown even longer than we already are. Um, but yeah, so I've been working at our local bowling alley for now, crazy to believe, it's been a year and a half already, a little
Yeah.
longer than that now. Of course, it's not open at the moment, but currently it looks like May 18th it could reopen, but I mean, you never know. All it takes is just one person to not follow their quarantine and it
Yep.
can spread to five people and then they spread it to five people and it just goes on and on and on.
Yes. Fingers crossed, man. I hope bowling alleys open as soon as possible. We
I
all want
mean,
that.
knock on wood.
Yes, exactly. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in. All right, so as we see here, we have the first card, as I'll continue to call them throughout this video, and it is for the Las Vegas High Rollers. So, the way that this was decided was through the PBA commissioner, Tom Clark, doing an official coin flip, if you will. And that was on Flow Bowling as well as Facebook Live, I believe. And the coin flip decided that the Las Vegas High Rollers are going to be getting the first draft pick of 2020. So I kind of want to know your thoughts on how that the Las Vegas High Rollers get the first pick. Alek, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's a great position to be in because you have the whole draft board in front of you. You can draft BPA, whoever your best player you think available is. I'm sure everyone has a different take on that, especially since this is a team event. It's more than just being the best player, it's how you're going to gel as a team and whether you can provide a leadership role or not. Everyone values that a little more or less than other people. I personally value that leadership role in a team event more than other people, I believe.
Hmm.
So for me, it's less about maybe pure physical talent and how good they throw the ball, and it's going to be more about how well they can gel as a team and become a unit.
Exactly. I completely agree. So, continuing further, let's go ahead and get into the first draft pick of the day. And this will be for Alec for the Las Vegas High Rollers. Like we said, they get the first pick. And I know, Alec, your screen is not necessarily going to show what everybody is seeing on their screen because we're doing this over Zoom, of course, over an online meeting with what's going on. But rest assured, I will do this as smoothly and accurately as possible. I promise. But yes, okay. So without further ado, go ahead, Alec, and let us know who you're picking and why that you want to go ahead and choose them for the first team, first pick.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go here. I think Monticelli being I mean, he's a smart person, smart bowler, but he also has a big international flair. So I think he's going make some unorthodox picks and go with a lot of international talent. And start off with that, I think we're going to pick the best international player available right now, which is Francois Lavoie from Canada.
Ah, I see.
I mean, he had a really strong start out of the gate when he made two shows in Detroit for was it the summer or fall swing then? I know he made Wolf and Badger, I believe.
Yes, I
And he
believe.
lost to Tom Doherty in the finals when it was his first year with Hammer. Um, and then he won, of course, the U.S. Open through the perfect game, which no one had ever done on television at the U.S. Open. And then he started to struggle a lot. I mean, he really struggled for a while there. And then, of course, he won the US Open last year and he put together a really strong year. And I think he's gone back to his true game of just a lot of touch, being just a really smart bowler, not trying to open his angles up as much as everyone else, and is just sort of trying to float the ball through there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Francois Lavoie is a great, incredible bowler. Like you said, he's international. He's from Canada. And that definitely fits the category that you want to stick with. Going international with Amleto Monticelli being the Las Vegas High Rollers manager. Now, I have to be honest. I will say that as surprising or maybe not surprising as it is, I did take a little bit of a different route when I went through kind of organizing this. I think the look on Alex's face kind of tells you. I feel like he knows already who I decided to go with. But let it be obvious no more, as I have decided for my first pick that I wanted to go ahead and put in Sean Rash for the Las Vegas High Rollers. And my reasoning is a little bit different when it comes to how that I'm building this team, and certainly want to be able to display the the character of the team, and I definitely like seeing Sean being the free agent that he is, and I certainly appreciate that he decided to go his own route. Asking to want to be his own kind of on his own, and I think that's a really strong position for him to take. I think that it takes a lot of guts to want to do that. Being with, I believe it was the Brooklyn Styles for a long time. Is that right, Alec?
Mm-hmm. That is correct, which is managed by Johnny Petragula.
Yes, Johnny Shiley, that's correct. And so, with the Brunswick outing there that they had for years on the Brooklyn Styles, kind of deviating from Sean Rash not being with Brunswick anymore, of course, but also a little underlying reasons as well. I think that it was very strong of Sean to say that, he didn't want to be a part of the team, which is really interesting. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my reasoning there as well, and I think that he's probably the most powerful, or I mean, as far as statistics are concerned, the best player that's available in the pool right now, in my opinion, and that's why I think he'd be a go-to first pick, but definitely debatable.
It's definitely hard to argue against him being the BPA. I mean, just looking at his point totals on the year, I
Yes.
mean, almost 13,000 on Frankie. I mean, he had a really dominant year, made two shows out of the gate with a new ball company, which speaks to his talent.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially over the years, it took him a while to change his game and evolve with injuries, but he's really figured it out. Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that he asked to be released from the Brunswick team, in my opinion. I don't know if you remember when Simonelli signed with Motive after leaving the DV8 Brunswick family after so many years, but there was some animosity per se.
Uh, mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like I, as a Brunswick is such a tight knit family that when they see someone leave, they take it personally. They do, at least from our perspective, where we're not involved. We don't know the politics. We can only see reactions. There does seem to be animosity, sort of a grudge, and I think Rash didn't want to be a part of that. Didn't want to have be a distraction on the team, and
Yes.
also didn't want to deal with that stress as well. So I think it benefits the Brooklyn Styles not having Rash on the team as a distraction, as the guy who left the family, and it benefits Rash to where he gets a new start, not just with a ball company in 900, but also in the PBA league.
That is very solid point. All right, so continuing on, we have going second by virtue of once again that coin toss that the commissioner Tom Clark chose or did. We have the Brew City Ballers, managed new team managed by Marshall Holman. So Alec, go ahead and walk us through your thoughts on the first pick for the Brew City Ballers.
Yeah, at least on my board, since Frankie was first, I think Marshall Holman sees Sean Rash up there and says, "Thank you very much." When you have arguably the most physically gifted bowler of the bunch still available, you just go ahead, pick him, say thank you very much. I mean, we just talked about Rash with your pick, so I won't repeat myself. But I mean, that's just a strong pick.
Yes, yeah, it very much so is, and I completely agree with that. And it's yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. Whenever you just kind of look through the statistics of the year and what's going on, he's definitely going to be up there as one of the first picks, if not the first. So certainly is a great choice, and I completely agree with you there. Um, Kind of continuing on now to my second pick of this draft. I'm gonna throw a little bit of curveball today. I feel like Marshall is very strong minded in who that he would like to pick. Um, kind of going forward with that, I think that he would pick some very valiant players that he knows are going to perform, and perhaps someone that was overlooked in last year's draft by gosh a mile was Andrew Anderson. So I'm going to be taking him as my first pick of the Brew City Ballers. He's an incredible bowler. He has had an incredible year. So what do you think about that, Alec?
I mean, I think his talent's undeniable. I mean, I think he's just a very personable person. I think
Hmm.
he has the potential to develop into a leader. He's already had some success winning the Masters and winning,
Absolutely.
it was 2018 Player of the Year.
I
Um,
believe so. Hmm.
Although he did struggle in 2019, but that was partially due to an injury. And even then, he still made a stepladder at the Summer Swing.
Hmm.
Uh, I thought he would really come back this year. I thought he really recovered from the injury, but I was a little disappointed in him this year. I mean, he still had a rather successful year, finishing 27th out of who knows how many players. I mean, there's hundreds of
Yeah.
players a year. So, I mean, that's got to be the top 10% at least. And it's
Mhm.
hard to say that's not successful, but when you have the expectations when you won 2018 Player of the Year and you just look at the talent, it's hard not to be a little disappointed. But I think in a league environment with the energy from the crowd and having a good team around him, I think he could get back to that 2018 level.
Absolutely. And his mindset is, I mean, almost second to none. I think that his mental game is incredibly strong, especially in today, in today's tour. I think he's doing an incredible job, and I'm very excited to see him in this year's league.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, it has the potential to be a really successful environment for him. And honestly, if he does well, it could snowball into more success if it can build some confidence in him.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so continuing further, we're going to go back now to the Las Vegas High Rollers. And let's hear what you have to say, Alec, for your next pick of the draft.
Yeah. So for Vegas, correct?
Yes, yep.
All right. So for Vegas, I mean, you could go a lot of ways here. You could try and take a lefty off the board. I personally believe taking a lefty for the sake of having a lefty is just overvalued in the league. I mean, sure, if they have a look, like if you can have a Buttriff or Svensson type player, they can be dominant. But
Mhm.
at the same time, even those high caliber lefties, if they just can't get a corner out, hit that one lane, I mean, it's a big risk. Obviously, there's a lot of traffic on the right side, but with so many players, they're able to wall it up well.
Mhm.
So I would look towards the best player and towards leadership again. And I would go towards Dick Allen. I mean, he's
Ah,
just, to me, I think he's the ultimate glue guy with personality, leadership, and the ability to step up on a big stage. I think Motown has a guy similar in Josh Blanchard, and just the fact that he's going to go up there, he's going to make a great shot, and he's a leader behind the scenes. Obviously, Dick Allen is a little more charismatic per se, but I think those two guys are the ultimate glue guys in the PBA league, and I
for
think
sure.
it's really hard to go wrong with a player of his caliber who always performs in Portland.
Absolutely, and I mean you were definitely correct whenever you brought up Josh Blanchard in that category as well, because a lot of people forget. Blanchard actually won the first ever Maine shootout, the first ever singles event in Maine for the PBA. I believe it was
Mhm.
2015, and I still remember
I
watching
want
that
to
live on
say
Extra Frame.
he beat Belmo. Is that correct?
Yes, he certainly did. That is 100% correct. Yep, and he also beat Oscar Palermo in the same stepladder. Or not stepladder per se, but same day,
The
same match
bracket.
play round. Yes, same bracket. That's what it is. Yes, absolutely. And I think that is a very solid choice to go with Dick Allen for your next pick of the draft. For the high rollers. I think that's a very solid choice that you have. Now,
So,
personally,
what are you thinking about here?
yeah, so personally, I kind of wanted to build this team somewhat similar to how you had with the international aspect of it. I thought that Amleto being the team captain of this, the manager of the Las Vegas High Rollers, I thought that it was an incredible idea to have some international flair, and that's why I'm going to go towards where you were talking, and go for Francois Lavoie on this pick here.
I mean, that's just a really strong pick. We talked about it earlier, but Frankie is a really talented player, and
Very
I think has the potential to be a top 10, maybe top 5 player in a great year for him.
absolutely yes. All right. So now, once again, we're going to go back towards or to the Brew City Ballers, the new team, of course, and we're going to go ahead and get our next picks in for the Brew City Ballers. So go ahead and lead us off, Alec. Tell us what you're thinking for this pick here.
I mean, I think we're going to go something similar to the Dick Allen pick, where we're just going to pick a player that we know is going to go up there, make a good shot, and has honestly done pretty well on television in his young career, and that's going to be Brad Miller. I think
Ah,
similar to Dick Allen and Josh Blanchard, as in he's a glue guy. He's going to go up there, make a good shot. You can put him anywhere in the lineup. You could honestly have him lead off. You could have him, honestly, if he has the look, he has the potential to be an anchor. And he just, I don't know what it is about him, but he kind of just seems like a leader to me.
Okay. Absolutely. I like that, I especially like that you talked about, he does have the qualities of a leader. I completely agree with that. I think that he's a great choice for that pick in the draft. I think that you went with a really smart choice there, kind of getting Brad out of the way early. And for me, I kind of wanted to go, with a very trusted player in Portland. Somebody that you've already chosen again. It kind of sounds like I'm a little bit behind you here on your picks. Kind of going a little bit of deviation, but I'm going to go ahead and take Dick Allen. um, I think that he would be a great fit for the kind of team that I expect Brew City to be. I expect Brew City to be a very outgoing and very powerful-minded team. With Marshall Holman and, as I chose earlier, Andrew Anderson to lead off. Um, or not necessarily lead off, but as the first pick that I chose for Brew City. And so I think that it's a very very good set team to have somebody strong-minded leading it with the manager of Marshall Holman, and I think it's a very smart idea to kind of keep that same personality, kind of like you were talking about with Amleto and the international players.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought about taking Dick first overall just because he's always bowled well in that bowling center.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be a team leader, keep the team together. I mean, from in a normal just best player draft, he probably wouldn't be in contention for first, but in a team event, he just has all those intangibles.
That's very
And
true.
there's just there's no one who has the same intangibles at him and steps up in that bowling center like him.
That's a very good point, and I completely agree with you. And let's see, the next pick is going to be for the Las Vegas High Rollers. This is going to get us finished with the Las Vegas High Rollers for a little while. As you'll see on your screen, the next picks are 24 and 25 for the Vegas High Rollers after number 5, and that, of course, is because it's a snake draft. And for those who don't know, we're going to be going from Vegas to Milwaukee to Philadelphia to Brooklyn. I'll go ahead and show those. So Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Motown, and the Silver Lake Atom Splitters to the Kingpins and the Strikers, the LAX and the Lumberjacks, and then working our way right on back down, which is a snake draft in regards to that. So let's go ahead and get from Alek our third pick for the Las Vegas High Rollers. And just to reiterate, so far he has chosen Francois Lavoie and Dick Allen as number 1 and number 2. So go ahead, Alek. What do you choose, or who do you choose for your third pick?
Yeah, I kind of want to go international again, but I think this match is just too good with him being from Vegas, being on the Vegas team, which is Darren Tang. He had
Ah,
a really good year this year, made the first show and led by a pretty large margin, if I remember correctly.
I believe you're right.
And even though I don't think he made another show, he was on the bubble a lot. He made a lot of cuts this year, had just a really strong comeback year after last year. And I think he's going to continue it. I think his confidence is at an all-time high. I think his physical body is in the right place. Like he's been streaming on Twitch at Vitamin D Tang,
Yes,
and
shout out.
he's I don't know. It's just he's just seems to be in the right mindset. Has been bowling well, and being from Vegas, I think it
Mhm.
just makes too much sense that he just has to be on the Vegas team.
Yeah, that is a very valid point. Something that I hadn't quite brought into contention. I'm just I didn't quite think about that point that you brought up of being from Vegas. That's a great hometown representation. Now he resides there, and so I think that that's a great way of kind of insinuating the team. I guess getting him started as having a hometown bowler like that. I think that's a really really great point that you bring up. Okay.
So,
Now,
what are you thinking here for this pick?
Yes. So as for me, I kind of wanted to go um, just a little bit different. You know, I let me see here. Okay, so I decided that I kind of wanted to lean more towards a very solid pick here that is also left-handed. I thought that the lefty pool was going to go fairly quickly, in my opinion, and I thought it would be a really good idea to have not only a solid lefty but also a really strong lefty. And in turn, I kind of wanted to go towards Ryan Simonelli. I think he's been pretty successful in the building in Bopo in the past. And of course, he hasn't had the greatest of years recently, but I still think that he's a very all around solid player when it comes to team building and team play on the lanes.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to just sheer power on one-handed lefties, there's no one close to him off the top of my head. The only player that really with that ball speed and rev rate is Jesper, and there's no one even righties who are close to Jesper.
That's true.
Um, I do think, at least for me, he's not going to be the first lefty off of my board. I mean, he's struggled a lot recently. He's had some control issues on his temper, and talking about that team and being together as a unit and a glue. I think you have to have the right leadership to take a player like Ryan on. Obviously, when Ryan is on, I mean, the energy he brings is like no one else. But I
Hmm.
think if success doesn't roll his way, I think he can become a little temperamental. I mean, that's partially why he did get suspended.
Yes.
And especially with how successful he's been recently, it's a high risk, high reward pick.
Yeah, I mean, well, and thinking back to last year, wasn't he on the Lumberjacks last year whenever they took the title?
He was, and that was his least successful year in the league. Before he was really solid. Was always the setup man before Malott.
Hmm.
And in some cases, you even wondered if he should be the anchor over Malott. But last year was a completely different story. His ball reaction was not very good.
That is very true, but I still think that he's going to be a solid pick overall, just because of his other history in that building. Besides just struggling with ball reaction last year, I think that he has had an overall solid career in that building. I think he's somebody that's definitely strong to go with, in my opinion. Um, so continuing on, we're going to go back to the Bruce City Ballers now, and Alec, who is your pick number 6?
Ooh, I mean, there's a lot of talent on the board. There is a lot of power, one-handed right-handers still on the board. I mean, you can go a lot of ways, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first lefty off the board, and that's going to be Packy Hanrahan. I
Ah, of
hope I'm
course.
pronouncing that right.
Yes.
I personally think from just a consistency basis this year, he was the best lefty available. I think on just a team, I think he's going to meld with whoever he is. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen him in the house, and he can chill with anyone. I mean, he
Absolutely.
has confidence in himself, but he's able to gel with different kinds of people and different kinds of team. And he's just really versatile for a two-hander. I mean, especially being a lefty, where he can play straight, he can hook it if he wants, and on a easier shot, especially where he's probably going to be the only lefty, instead of just being. We'll take Simonelli for an example. Or if the high hard one's not there, he's kind of shut out. I think Packy is versatile enough where he could move in, or he could slow hook urethane even. Um, I think he's my best lefty available, and I think it's personally what that team needed. Considering I have chosen Sean Rash and Brad Miller, so that's two one-handed righties.
Hmm.
Throw in a two-handed lefty in there is going to be their highest ball speed, highest rev rate. Um, I think that's just what they needed, and I think they'll be able to gel together.
Yeah, and I think you're making a very smart pick putting Brad Miller and Packy on the same team. That's a pretty smart idea because they do get along very, very well. Being part of the famous house, as you mentioned. Throughout their vlogs. And so I think that was a really smart idea on your part. I definitely commend you for going into that. That's something that I kind of deviated from. I haven't put up Brad Miller yet. And I kind of hadn't thought about putting somebody like that together. That's a really smart idea. It gives them a lot of chemistry as well, which is very important. But personally, though, I really wanted to go with somebody that is definitely a rising star, and I happen to know him decently well. I bowled with him a lot, and we get along really well. He's a super nice guy. Also, a one-handed righty to keep with my trend of Andrew Anderson and Dick Allen on this team so far, and that is AJ Johnson. And I think that doesn't really come to much of a surprise based on how AJ's year is going so far. Um, I think the only surprising thing about AJ is the fact that he hasn't won a true PBA Tour title. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you just look at that talent and the fact that it's kind of surprising he's on his third ball company. I mean, he did
mhm,
well with Storm, but I think they have so many talented players. The reps, it's not that they didn't want to give him more attention, it's just that they couldn't with the talent they have.
mhm,
I really thought he was going to have a great year with Ebonite last year, and he never really broke out in my eyes. I don't know if
yeah,
it was equipment match, layout, or something physical. But this year with Motive, I mean, he did really well, made a lot of cuts. There was a lot of times where he led after the first block and then fell out of the cut, which I thought was really weird. It happened at least twice. I'm not sure if that's something with his equipment, something with him, or something with their reps. But the talent there is undeniable, and I think the team fit is really good as well, which can help him bowl better, I believe.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that him and Andrew Anderson get along really, really well. And then we have Dick Allen, who's just an overall light spirited leader. Um, So certainly somebody that I see kind of meshing well with that is AJ, and I think that it would be a really great team to watch as well. Personally, from like a fan perspective, I think it'd be really cool to see the three of them together. And you're right though. I mean, AJ switching ball companies, is something that kind of came as a shock to me as well. With how much he has switched going. And I still remember his first tournament with Ebonite equipment. I believe was the Hall of Fame Classic that year. And I mean, he struggled to say the least. I mean, he was in the bottom probably 15% of the field, and it was just really rough to see that for him. But it's definitely something that he has rebounded from, switching to Motive now. And I think that he's had a lot better of a year though, and everybody's just waiting for him to break out and just win.
Yeah, I mean, I truly do believe it's going to happen. I mean, you just look at the ball speed, the rev rate. I think he's pretty versatile with his hand
Hmm.
and the angles he can play. I sort of think it's kind of like EJ. He just has to win one, and it's kind of just going to explode from there.
Exactly, I couldn't agree more. That's absolutely true. Okay, so continuing on to Philadelphia Hitmen now, getting into the already existing teams, if you will. So, Alec, go ahead and lead us off. So far reserved, we have Sean Maldonado, Dom Barrett, and Tom Smallwood for this team. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia has a really strong leadership core of Dom, Tom, and Sean. I mean, they're all great bowlers in their own right. But I think, at least from my perspective, I never hear anything bad about those three,
Hmm.
especially Tom and Sean. Not to say Dom is not as great as they are. It's just you always hear people talk about Tom and Sean about how nice they are, how genuine they are.
Yeah.
Um, so I think you look at the team where you have Dom, who is kind of surprising he hasn't had more success. I think you could put him in a power tweener where he can do anything he wants to a bowling ball. He can hook it, play straight, You have Tom, who's sort of that same mold of being a glue guy. You can place him anywhere. You know he's going to make a good shot. And then Sean, as well, being a leader. You know he's going to make good shots. I
Mhm.
think this is a really good landing place for Ryan Simonelli. It adds a
Mm.
power lefty to their mix. And I think Simonelli, with the leadership they have, can meld in really well. So even if he succeeds right away and strikes, I mean, it just propels them up right away. But even if he struggles at first, like he did last year, I think he has the right support behind him where he can still succeed.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's a really strong choice going with a lefty there because they don't already have a lefty that they reserved. So I think that you're onto something there. Throwing that lefty in, I think is a pretty smart choice. And I know that we talked earlier about kind of the team, cohesiveness, if you will, of how the players get along with each other, and getting along well with each other is something that's very important. I see it a lot in college bowling, and a lot of people see it whenever they bowl league or any team event. Really, you want to get along well with whoever that you happen to be bowling with. And so I kind of took that into concern for this team, especially being with Dom, who is, from the United Kingdom, very big supporter of international players, and somebody that he has roomed with in the past and just had an all-around great friendship with over the years is Osku Palermo. And I really wanted to take Osku for this team. I thought that he would be an amazing fit. Going with Dom already being on the team, and I think Osku is a great two-hander that might even complement Sean a lot. Even though Osku does like to throw urethane quite a bit, I think that he can help Sean out, kind of getting lined up and anything that he might need. What do you feel about, or how do you feel about that, Alec?
Honestly, that's just a great pick. The team chemistry, as you mentioned, with Dom, the fact that the two handers can play off of each other, even though Osku does tend to play a little straighter than Sean does, throws it a little harder with a little more hand. They can still play off of each other about where the spot is. And in a way, Osku can sort of build a wall up for Sean that he can just bounce it off of.
For sure.
And the same goes for Dom, where he can bounce it off of Osku's spot down lane.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I
Okay.
mean, that's just a strong pick. I mean, it's kind of weird how he's never been more successful in the league.
That's
Like, I
very
feel
true.
like Osku has the power. I mean, not just the power, he has the sheer talent and he has the leadership ability as well. Um, but I don't know if it's something with the building or if it's just been the amount of time he's practiced, but I don't think he's bowled this well in many, many years.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And continuing on, the next team that we have for the draft is the Brooklyn Styles. Which, quick side note about Brooklyn Styles, in the past, they have been a pretty much all Brunswick team. I think we talked about that with Sean Rash a little bit, choosing to leave this team and no longer be a part of it. And so, one pretty immediate thought that I kind of had seen was the fact that Brad Angelo is now a reserve player on the Brooklyn Styles. So that kind of changes things up quite a bit for the Styles, in my opinion. And I think you'd probably agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Brad Angelo being with Storm, it's also Rhino Page
Yes, Rhino
being.
Page.
Is
Hmm.
is he a free agent or with the big bowling?
I believe he was with Big Bowling now.
Yeah, so in a way, it kind of looks like they've gone away from that Brunswick only group.
Hmm.
But my pick is actually keeping the mindset of they're going to keep being Brunswick only. And I mean, when you look at that group, it's a talented group with Walter, Brad, and Rhino. But none of those players are exactly what we would call power players.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to go with the biggest power player that's a Brunswick player off the top of my head, and that's going to be. Let me make sure I pronounced this right. Michael Davidson. I mean, I know it's
Interesting.
going to be a really surprising pick, but every time I watch him on Flow Bowling, I mean, the guy just grabs a handful of it at the bottom. I mean, for one-handers besides EJ, there's not a lot of guys that can hit the ball as hard as he can. And being a Brunswick guy, I think that's where they could go. I mean, a safe pick would be Jason Sterner. I mean, he's Mr. Consistent. You know what you're
Yes.
getting out of him. He's
Hmm.
been in this environment before as well. But I think at least if I was in that position and I was going with the mindset of I'm keeping a Brunswick guy, I'm going to roll the dice, take Michael Davison because he gives the team something they don't have and they desperately need.
Wow. I am actually pretty surprised with that pick that you chose there. Personally, I didn't see Michael Davison coming into the first round. Just my views, but wow, I'm very surprised, and I completely agree with where you're coming from, the mindset and backstory of your pick there. I think that it's a pretty accurate pick if you want to stick with that Brunswick feel, and personally, I chose as well to stick with the Brunswick family, but I went a little different route. Somebody that sometimes in the league actually gets a little overlooked, and it surprises me every year that he does get overlooked. And also, they already have Rhino Page, which is a lefty, and I wanted to kind of incorporate another lefty that would be very helpful for them, and that is Parker Bone the third. And my reasoning there as well is because the team is managed by Johnny Petraglia, and the relationship that Parker and Johnny have, I mean, has been around for decades. And it's a very solid choice if you want two people to get along well. I mean, there you go. Parker and Johnny for sure. He kind of speaks for himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's undeniable the bond that they have, the Brunswick guys. Um, Personally, I think they're probably this year going to start to go in a different direction, which I think is good for the league. I didn't think it was very good for the league, the fact that there was a single team that always had only their staffers.
Yeah.
I didn't think that fit the spirit of the league at all. And I mean, especially when you just look around and you look at some of the talent they had on the board that they didn't pick because they were on another company. If I was in that position, that's not the way I would go. But just knowing their history and looking at what they need, which is just a true power player in my mind, I think that's why I went with Michael Davison. And it also helps the fact that all three of the guys on there, Walter, Brad, and Rhino, are super experienced, are all great leaders, and will
Hmm.
be able to help ease them into the environment where they could
Absolutely.
maybe start him off in the second spot. And then if he really does show that he can handle it, you could even move him into the setup or anchor just due to that sheer overwhelming power that he has.
Yeah, absolutely. And continuing further, all right, we have the Motown Muscle. Our reserve players are Josh Blanchard, Anthony Simonson, and EJ Tackett. So, kind of walk us through who that you're choosing here for the fourth player of the Motown Muscle.
Yeah, so I've always felt like Motown has always underachieved. I mean, they have two top five players, in my opinion, with EJ and Anthony. And then you have, as we talked about him earlier with Dick Allen, one of the best glue guys in the league, which is Josh Blanchard. You can have him lead off or
Yep.
have him be in that three hole right before Anthony and EJ to set up that late game turkey or
Hmm.
even ham bone or five bagger. But they've always struggled. And I'm not sure if it's a team chemistry issue or my theory, because you never see anything between EJ and Anthony. They don't really interact. I don't think they have a beef. But I think when they're in the league environment, they have a small issue of who's the alpha, who's the anchor, who's the finisher. And there have been some years where Anthony was the finisher and EJ probably should have been. And there's been some years where it's the opposite, where EJ was and Anthony should have been.
Hmm.
And this is pure speculation. I obviously know nothing. I have zero contact with these players. It's just they've never made the finals, and they have two of the top five players.
Yeah.
It just doesn't add up, especially when you add the manager is Del Ballard, who is a Storm rep. Um, so when I look at that team, you have two power righties, and then you have Josh Blanchard, who is just a great pick. I mean, he can do pretty much anything you want. I think you stick with the theme of power, just try to overwhelm people, and I would go Osku Palermo here.
Ah, I see. Okay. Very solid pick.
I mean, as we said with you, Osku, I mean, is coming off the best year he's had in I don't know how long. He's struggled for a long time, but he really performed this year. And with how he's talked about how in the past he wasn't working as hard as he should have, and how he's in the gym more, he's practicing more, I expect that to continue.
Yeah, I would agree. Now as far as my pick for the Motown Muscle, I had a really good thought of somebody that is on the rise again. It's kind of similar to AJ Johnson. He's certainly on the rise, and he's an upcoming player. Somebody that's looking to win their first title still, and is just an all-around, just amazingly spectacular player when it comes to the physical game. It probably his only flaw is just a little bit of mental capacity, but that is AJ Chapman, and I
That's
think that
a really strong pick.
yeah, I think that he can be overlooked by a lot of people, but I certainly think that he is a really strong go-to and works really well. Having gone to Wichita State University, works really well in the team environment and knows what to do in that environment.
Definitely. I mean, he's another guy that can just really grab it at the bottom. And I mean, when you look at Motown for either of our teams, I mean, that's three guys that can really hit the ball. I
Yeah,
mean, they probably all have, well, Anthony's more like 470 rev rate. He's not quite at 500. So three guys that can hit 470.
yeah.
I
All
mean,
right.
that's a lot of power.
It is a lot of power for their team. And next, speaking of power, we have the Atom Splitters with Jesper Svensson as one of their reserve players. Very powerful. Chris Barnes and Tom Doherty is the other two. Um, so let's hear what you have for your 10th overall draft pick.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy for them. They see that AJ is still on the board. He's been with them in the past. And I mean, the talent, as we talked about with AJ, is undeniable.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. So let's see, AJ Johnson in there. And I think that that is a wonderful pick. Like you said, they've had him in the past. He's worked with Chris Barnes on the Atom Splitter. Chris, of course, being with the Atom Splitters every single year that they've been around, and has a really strong relationship with Mark Baker, the team manager for them. So I think that that's a great pick from you to choose AJ Johnson. Um, as for me, though, I kind of wanted to choose somebody again that's had a lot of success in the team environment. In fact, I believe he was part of last year's winning team, which was the Lumberjacks from Portland, the hometown. Um, and so I went ahead and went towards Mitch Hoope for this choice, and I thought he'd be very overall well-rounded and strong player. Once again, another person to go to Wichita State University in his past, and I think he'd be an incredible person to fit on the Adams Players team.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about sheer power, there's not a lot of guys that can match Hupe. I mean,
Hmm.
just watching him bowl, I think it's a little bit of his mental game and a little bit of just consistency. Um, but from just a sheer potential, if he could hit that potential, um, he could be a really, really great player one day. And I think he's a very Silver Lake pick.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean the hair too. I mean, you can't forget the hair.
Definitely. I mean, Silver Lake and Dallas sort of have their guys that they always pick. Like they have certain guys. Sort of like I go into the NFL draft, the Baltimore Ravens only select guys that they think can play like a Raven. Like they have certain guys that fit their team and their culture. And I think for the PBA, Silver Lake and Dallas definitely have their guys. They have their culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, our next team is coming up to my personal favorite team of the league, and that is the New York City Kingpins. So they have Pete Weber, Kyle Sherman. Oh, what a great pick Kyle is, and Marshall Kent. So for their reserve players. So go ahead, Alec, and let's hear who you've chosen for the Kingpins.
Yeah, I mean they already have a lot of talent. I think the big thing for them is how Pete performs. He historically performed well, and then he had some issues, but it looks like he's getting back on track.
Very
He's
true.
doing better than he has in the past. So I think in this case, I mean, they have Kyle Sherman, a big power guy. They have Marshall Kent, another big power guy. I think they sort of need that glue guy, like that Josh Blanchard, Dick Allen prototype. And while I don't think he's as vocal as they are,
Hmm.
I think from just a sheer you can place him anywhere you want. I think that's Thomas Larson.
Ah,
Um, I think he's a really underrated player. He's one of my personal favorites to watch just because I think he can do pretty much anything he wants to a ball. Even though he doesn't have maybe the rev rate, the power, the flash that other guys have. I mean, he can play together. He can get in and really slow hook it. He's very versatile and can do a lot with his hands. So Thomas Larson has always been a favorite of mine to watch, and I think with what that team needs of just a consistent, going to hit the pocket, I think that's Thomas Larson.
yeah, I would completely agree. I like that you went with the international pick there, For me, I was really struggling with, do I give them a lefty right now or do I wait until later to give them a lefty? And it was something because personally I haven't chosen Packy Hanrahan, which is a shock, that I haven't chosen him yet. And I
It
kind
is
of
true that he is a shocker.
That's yes, that is another side point. But I still was debating that, and I ultimately decided that I would go with a righty right now in the draft, and kind of surprise myself a little bit. But I definitely felt that to get along with Kyle Sherman would be none other than Brad Miller in this situation. I just thought he would be even more valuable than putting a lefty on the team because you've already chosen Brad Miller, of course. You chose him very early on, and I thought throwing him there would be the best thing that ever happened for the Kingpins.
I mean, it's hard to deny that chemistry right there.
Hmm.
I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that. Especially Brad sort of fills the same role as I envision Thomas on my side,
Yeah,
which is he can do pretty much anything he wants to the ball. You could have him lead off, you could have him be anywhere in the lineup that you really want. Like he can do anything.
yeah, absolutely. And continuing forward to Brad Miller's previous team, the Dallas Strikers, which is Norm Duke, who is also the manager for the team, Bill O'Neill, and Tommy Jones. So, who have you chosen to be your 12th overall draft pick?
Yeah, I mean, this is going back to Dallas has their guys that they always try and get.
Hmm.
And what I historically see is for the first pick, they like to go just sort of BPA. And then for the last pick, they like to go, they pretty much shock everybody and pick whoever Norm Duke thinks is the most talented young player that people haven't caught on to.
Hmm.
So I think when you look at the board right now, um, at least on my side, they could pick any of Anderson, Chapman, even BJ Moore. Moore has been extremely successful in this draft,
Yeah.
or and not this draft. Sorry, the history of the PBA league.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I think they would probably go with Andrew Anderson. He was a guy that Norm found early on in his career to begin with. And I think he just fits the Dallas culture of what the strikers are, where they can bowl in any spot. I mean, you see it all the time. They change their lineups more than anyone, I feel.
I agree. Yeah.
And
I
I
mean, I,
think Anderson gives them that versatility to either lead off, be anchor, can really do anything.
I completely agree. He is a very versatile player, and a great pick for Dallas. You know, a very strong pick for Dallas, in my opinion. And you know, as somebody that I chose really early, and you know, seeing that if he makes it this far, I think that the Dallas Strikers could very easily take Andrew. Now, as I spoke on it earlier, this is where that I wanted to place Packy Hanrahan. You know, I thought, you know, it's surprising that I let him go this far because of how good that I think the Packy is. I have a lot of respect for him being a two-handed lefty, and we all know how amazing the two-handed lefties are in the general. You know, and
In
so
general, yeah.
yes, so you know, I thought it'd be a really solid pick for Dallas to be able to snag Packy right there.
I mean, I agree with that. I think Packy, when you watch him bowl, I think he definitely fits the culture and what they look for in being a Dallas striker. I think, as we talked about, he's very versatile. I think he can do a lot. I think he can be a leadoff bowler.
Hmm.
I think he can be an anchor. He can do pretty much anything he wants to ball, which is rare for a two-handed lefty.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. I think for the first pick, they tend to go just BPA, and I think he's BPA.
Absolutely. Alrighty. So for the next team, we have the Los Angeles X, which you know is first strike, of course. So the reserve players are Jason Almonte, Stu Williams, and Jacob Buttroff, and their team manager is Andrew Kane. So go ahead and walk us through who you've got for the LAX.
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely go back to Anthony Lavery Spar, who they had last year. I think that would work out very well. But looking at the board, I think they'd probably go with AJ Chapman. They already have so much power, and I think they just add on to that even more. Just try and just overwhelm everybody they run into.
Absolutely. I would have to completely agree. You know, as we spoke on AJ earlier, he's just a really versatile and very good player. You know, and I completely agree with that. And for LAX, my personal pick was somebody that I believe, yeah, you took earlier. I don't remember the exact team that you put him on. I think that you, let me look here. I think that you put him with, yes, you put him with Las Vegas as I look back now. And so you put him on Las Vegas. You took him early. I went ahead and kind of let him wait through this, and I'm going to go with Darren Tang for the LAX.
I think that's a really strong pick.
Yeah, you
It's
know, he's. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, even though Stu Williams is sort of that role of that versatile, can be anywhere guy, he still
Mhm.
has a surprisingly high rev rate that I don't think people realize how powerful his bowling ball is. Like even though it doesn't look like he puts a lot of effort into it, and you
Mhm.
don't hear about him being talked in that power player game, uh, whenever you see him and they have the statistics up there, I mean, I'm always shocked to see how he's at like 420, 450. You know, he always seems like a 370, 400
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
So I think it's a really strong pick. And having Tang in there, he's that true glue guy where you just know he's going to make a good shot and he's going to hit the 1-3 no matter what.
I
Sometimes
agree.
Stu can get a little erratic. I think it's personally because his ball speed gets slow and he hits on it. So by having Darren Tang in there, he's that really strong. He's hitting the 1-3 no matter what.
I agree. All right. So our next team is going to be the Lumberjacks, who won last year. That's why they are last in the pick. Their manager is none other than Tim Mack, of course, a great international player for pretty much all of his life. So the reserve players they have are Wes Malott, Kyle Troop, and Chris Prather. Of course, they had to go with Chris, you know, being reserved since he won the tour finals at you know, Bopo, where this is held.
I mean, Chris is just a stream talent. I mean, he's just we talk about guys that can do anything to a ball, and he is one of those guys, except unlike a lot of other people where their rev rate's more that 350, 400 range, he's in that 450, 500 range, and he can do anything he wants to his ball speed. He can throw it 20 plus miles an hour, and he can also throw it 15 if he wants.
I agree.
I mean, he is the really most versatile player on tour, I feel, right now. Because if he wants to play the gutter or slow hook it, I mean, he can do anything he wants.
I
So
agree.
I think this is probably, they already have a really complete, well made team, in my opinion. I think you personally try and find a lefty here, and I think you probably have to go with Matt Sanders.
Oh,
I
wow.
think
I love that
unless I'm missing a lefty on the board, which is entirely possible because I'm blind,
pick.
I think he just brings something they don't have to the table. I mean, I think obviously he struggled recently after having a really strong start to his career where he won the plastic ball championship
Yep.
and made the finals for the world championship and went to the roll off of Kyle. Uh, Obviously has struggled a bit since then. But I think with what the team needs and what he's capable of, I think there's no denying his potential and what he could become. I think he fits the team.
Absolutely. And personally, I wanted to deviate away from the lefty for one pick and go with BJ Moore, just because he's somebody that has had or just kind of fits the overall characteristic that I think that they're looking for. You know, somebody to step up and help them be once again the hometown heroes. You know, like they were last year. And I think that that's a great role, you know. And we spoke on BJ Moore earlier, you know, because you chose him early in your draft. And I think he's an overall good pick. So who do you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so who do you think fits with your Matt Sanders pick there with the others?
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I think tends to be a little more of a quiet guy.
Hmm.
Uh, But seeing how they already have Kyle, who is a very loud and flamboyant guy, I
Yep.
think Chris, when he makes a really good shot, can, with especially with the crowd, can get energized. And with Wes, when he makes a big shot, he gets energized. I think they can actually bring out the best in Matt. I think what could be holding him back is, I think, and this affects me too, is I can sometimes in tournaments just be too quiet, too down to earth, and not have enough energy. Like you have to be invested. I feel like to bowl well at tournaments and to do well. And I think having those guys on the team, especially with the crowd, could actually bring the best out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and as we see here, the Lumberjacks get the next pick as well because of the snake draft. So let's go ahead and complete our first team for your side of the draft. So who do you have?
Yeah, I think Tim Mack always has a certain kind of player that he looks for.
Hmm.
And I'll be completely honest, I have no idea what kind of player he would look for here. There's a lot of ways you could go. You could go Michael Tang, Sam Cooley, Patrick Gerard, Andres Gomez. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a ton of talent here. Even Martin Larson would be a really good pick. But I think a guy that we have both overlooked, I don't think any of us have picked him yet, is Nicholas Pate.
Ah, yeah. Neither of us have picked
I,
him yet. It's
I think he has a lot of potential, I feel like, as a player to keep growing even in his young career. And I feel like being on a team with that much experience, we talked about being with Wes, Chris, and Kyle, and now Matt Sanders as well. I think that's a rather experienced group, and I think they can bring out the best in him.
for sure. Yes. Absolutely. And oops. I completely agree with you. It's somebody that we both certainly have overlooked to this point, but I see that as a solid pick from you. You know, and I think that's a really solid pick. Now, where I was kind of going with this is kind of funny because you just chose him a moment ago, and that is Matt Sanders. You know, for the almost exact same reasons that you had gone with him for this team. You know, being the lefty that I feel like they could really use because they don't have any other than you know Matt Sanders being there now, and I think it's a great way for them to kind of have a well-rounded team. So yeah, I think we both are in agreement on that
Definitely.
point. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, I think we both agree Matt has a lot of potential to be a really good lefty on tour for a long time. I
for
think
sure.
he can become that player. Whether he will, we'll see. But I think he can, and that's why we picked him.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're going to go in reverse because of the snake draft. So for LAX, your team so far is AJ Chapman along with Jacob Buttriff, Stuart Williams, and Jason Belmonte. Those are our players. So kind of walk us through your pick to complete the team.
Yeah, I think they go with Martin Larson. He's been on their team before. It's an instant team chemistry, instant glue guy. I'm sure. I wonder if someone's going to track how many times I say glue guy. You might as well. I mean, he just
Yes.
really brings the team together. He's been on the stage before. It's shocking he's never broke through for one title. He has that talent. He has that capability. Um, Unfortunately, he had the where he got in the accident and hurt his arm.
Yes.
So I really do hope one day that he can pull through for that one title, if not more, because he absolutely deserves it. And I mean, he's just a good bowler. He's going to make this
Absolutely.
team better.
I completely agree. And that's somebody that I could definitely see fitting well with your team there. With AJ and Jacob and Stuart and Jason. I think that that's a very good team that you've got going there. With Martin being on there. But as for me, with Darren Tang being my other choice, with the reserve players, my kind of answer to that was tone it down a little bit and go to Jason Sterner. Somebody that's just double check here. Yeah, somebody that you haven't personally chosen yet, but I decided to go Jason. I thought he would be a really good fit for this team, being a one-handed righty, which both of my picks actually were one-handed righties, to kind of mesh well with Jacob being that lefty. Who I mean, we know Jacob, and then Jason.
Hmm.
Well, same story. Is they're both incredible bowlers, and I think that kind of using the opposite end of the spectrum with the one-handed righties to kind of tone those in is a really good idea. So I went with Jason.
I mean, Jason's a really good bowler. He's one of my favorites to watch. I think that's a solid pick, and it brings the team together as we've talked about. I think, and it's something that's hard to predict because we don't personally know these guys. I mean, you know them a little better than I do because you talked to AJ and I'm sure some other guys. I don't. I'm completely blind, so I can only guess how they are. But Jason just seems like a really good guy.
Well, and here's a little disclaimer too. Alec is very into the statistical analysis type stuff when it comes to sports. As far as I know, anyways, from knowing him for a number of years now, and I'm not so much. I'm more of like a passionate kind of like let's go with who we feel, and so I feel like that's a great that's where a lot of the differences in our perspectives are coming from, and I think it's a great comparing and contrasting of that. And,
Definitely. I do tend to, like for baseball, I tend to look at the advanced analytics.
hmm
Um, but it's not something you can always trust. Sometimes you just have to trust your eye and say, this guy is producing, has produced for a long time, and he's going to be good. But
Absolutely.
sometimes you can use those advanced analytics to take a guy that you wonder, how is he succeeding when it looks like he shouldn't?
hmm
And then you look at the analytics, like for baseball, it's the spin rate on their fastball, and you go, oh, that's how they miss it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, I think that's a strong pick.
Yes, absolutely. And now going back to the Dallas Strikers, who Alec has chosen Andrew Anderson to fill in with Tommy Jones, Bill O'Neill, and Norm Duke. So who do you think fits there?
I just want to double check real quick. I don't believe I've taken BJ Moore, right?
No, I do not have BJ Morris taken off of your list.
Normally, Dallas would, I think, tend to look towards a younger future player. Like, I think a player that could surprise a lot of people here would be Chris Salone out of Ireland. I think he has a lot of long-term potential and has already succeeded. He's made a show. I think another player, Greg Young,
Mm.
could
hmm
absolutely be that player. He was a player coming into this that I thought I'd pick by now. I really like watching him, just the way he bowls, the way he conducts himself. I think he has a bright future, but I think they see BJ Moore on the board and say, thank you very much. Let's
Yeah,
go win a title.
I think he fits really well with the Andrew Anderson pick that you chose. I think that that's a great combo there that you chose.
Yeah, I in real life, I don't think he's going to be there. But in our virtual reality, he's there. They say thank you, run away, and they just have the biggest grin on their faces.
Absolutely. Now, for me, I went with somebody that I think I'm kind of a little shocked and I'm not so shocked at the same time of you having looked over so far through the draft, and that is Ronnie Russell. He is somebody that has definitely performed in the league before. He was with the Hitmen, I think 2 years ago, or was that last year? You might know.
I want to say he was first with Motown, and he was part of the group of Anthony and EJ, and
Mm,
that worked out well. And then he started to struggle, and then he went to Philadelphia, and he was the number one pick.
yes.
And then he still has struggled and has
Mhm.
sort of gone through a couple ball companies. Has been
Yep.
trying to make some physical changes. I know he's been really working hard on his tilt.
Yes.
And the fact that he's always had a lot of tilts, he's been trying to cut down on that. Um, I mean, previously he's performed really well. He had a 2 year stretch with Motive where he was really dominant.
Hmm.
Even though I think he only won like 3 titles in that period, it felt like he made a lot of shows, made a lot of cuts.
I agree.
Um, I think he still has it in him and I think on that team they can bring it out in him.
Absolutely. All right. So then our next team through the draft is going to be the WTT New York City Kingpins. Once again, my personal favorite team. Um, Alec has selected Thomas Larson to go with Marshall Kent, Kyle Sherman, and Pete Weber. So Alec, let's hear who that you've chosen to finish the team.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of ways I keep saying that for every pick, but it's true. I mean, there's so much talent in the
Oh,
league
I
right
know.
now.
Crazy.
Um, the manager is Carolyn, right?
Yes, Carolyn Doran Ballard.
Knowing Carolyn, I think she's going to go with Michael Tang.
Really?
Michael
Okay.
Tang, you watch him bowl and you kind of wonder how he hasn't had more success. At least that's how I feel when I watch him bowl. I mean, it's honestly just impressive how effortless his delivery looks to me, how much power he can create without, like trying at all. Like with EJ, you watch him and it looks like he puts so much effort, and he has to at his size. But with
Hmm.
Michael, he just makes it look easy, and I kind of wonder how it hasn't clicked yet. I don't know if it's a mental game, if it's a practice, or if it just has been bad luck, hasn't just worked out yet.
Yeah, absolutely. For my next pick, I chose Brad Miller to fill the 11 spot for this team with Marshall and Kyle and Pete. And with that said, the Kyle Sherman and Brad Miller whole team gel right there is so good. And so, I figured that they could use a lefty. I figured that that'd be a real advantage for them. I don't know if you agree, Alec, if you feel like a lefty would be a really good fit for them. But personally,
Definitely.
yeah. And so personally, I decided to go Michael Holloman.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at him right now thinking, man, I kind of forgot about him.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
he's
that's a really strong pick.
yeah, I believe that he was somewhere in the 50s for the tour points list from for the PBA this year.
45.
45. Okay, I was close. Yes. So yeah.
He was on Philadelphia last year,
Was he?
correct?
I don't
I'm
remember that.
pretty sure. Like
Really?
I kind of forgot too, but I'll do a quick Google for us here. But I'm
Yes.
pretty sure
Wow. I didn't realize
he was
that.
part of the league last year, so he does bring experience. Um, unless my memory is just gone, which I mean, there's always a possibility. You never know.
I still think he's a great player, though. I think he's a very smart guy, very smart bowler, and I would be really excited to see him be a part of the Kingpins as their lone lefty.
Absolutely. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think they needed a lefty, and that's the best available lefty.
Yeah, yeah, I know we've gone through a lot of lefties so far, almost all of them.
Sorry, he was on Motown, not
Oh, okay.
Philadelphia.
So he does have that experience though, so that's really good. I totally forgot about him being part of the league. That's awesome. Yeah. All right. So our next team to complete is the Silver Lake Atom Splitters. With Chris Barnes, Jesper Svensson, and Tom Doherty reserved, and you chose AJ Johnson for your number 10 pick. So let's hear it for number 19. Who you got to finish the team?
Yeah, gotta be Mitch Hupe. I kind of don't know how he's slipped so far in my board. I think a big thing is we've talked about it with some players like Michael Tang before, where you look at his game and you go, "Wow, that kid has so much potential. How hasn't he made a show or made more cuts? How is he not more consistent?" And as we talked about with some of the other bowlers who's sort of had some success, but some not.
Mhm.
We don't know their behind the scenes, but when you just look at their game, at least from what I look for, I mean, he has a lot of long term potential. And I think being on Silver Lake, being with Chris Barnes, is just a really good fit for him where he could blossom.
For sure, yeah, and that's exactly who I chose to be on this team for my first round draft pick for this Silver Lake Atom Splitters was Mitch Hupe. I think that's a wonderful choice for you to make there. Um, excuse me. So continuing on, I think that a really good fit for the team that I have going on would be Martin Larson. To go with Jesper Svensson and Martin are really good friends. I believe they're both from the same country. Is that right? Are they?
I'm
Um,
pretty sure they're both Swedish.
yes, yeah, I believe they're both from Sweden, and that's a really big advantage. Just having somebody there that like, hey, he knows where I'm from, and I think it's a good advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that that's
I
a really
think
well-rounded team.
Martin is a great pick. I think Martin would be a great pick for any team, to be honest, because you know what you're getting out of him. He brings leadership, and he's just a good bowler.
I completely agree. All right, so to continue on, we have the Motown Muscle, who you selected Osku Palermo to be part of the team with EJ, Anthony, and Josh. So walk us through your number 20 pick.
Yeah, I think they see Mikael Holloman and think we need a lefty. That's a great lefty that's right there for us, and say thank you very much.
There you go.
I mean, as we talked about with you, Mikel is a talented bowler, has experience. He was with them last year too. So
Yes.
unless the PBA website lied to me, but presuming it's telling the truth, he was with them last year, so it's another bonus to team chemistry right there.
Yes, yeah, that's great. That would be four of the same players, and then you have Osku on that team, so I think that's a great play for you, for your team building right there. I think that's an awesome idea. Um, Now let's see who I should go with on this one. Personally, I think that adding a little bit of international flair to the team, because I have AJ Chapman with EJ, Anthony, and Josh, and those are all Americans. I like adding a little bit of flair from international sometimes, and I think a really good person to fit that, who I know you haven't mentioned yet, and he isn't as looked at as a lot of players, especially from what you would expect. I think that he's having a much better year than what he's had in the past. Is Zach Wilkins, the Canadian.
Yeah, I think Zach Wilkins is a great bowler. In fact, I at first thought you were talking about a different Canadian by the name of Patrick Gerard.
Ah,
But I really like Zach Wilkins as well. This is for Motown, correct?
yes, yep, mm-hmm.
So him and EJ already have the chemistry being on the same staff, and Zach has been on the Motive staff for a while now. So I
Yep.
don't. I mean, again, we don't know their personal lives, but I'm sure when you're on the same staff of someone for at least 5 years now. There's at least chemistry there. And then
Yeah.
add in the fact that he's really developed as a bowler the past few years, made a show last year with Patrick in the doubles, and then made a show this year as well, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
So he's been getting better, making more shows, and I think he still just has more potential and he was going to develop more. And being drafted on a league is a big confidence booster, which will help him. And then being with VJ, who he knows, I think can comfort him and allow him to do even better.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. He's never been a part of the league as far as I know. And so I think it's just a really good idea to throw him in there and get him part of a team. And I think this is a great fit for him, being a two-hander and all. So,
Absolutely.
yes. All right. So our next team is the Brooklyn Styles. So, of course, we have Rhino Page, Walter Ray Williams Jr., and Brad Angelo reserved. And you chose Michael Davidson for your number 8 pick. So let's hear what you have to say about your number 21 pick to complete the team.
Yeah, I really want to go Greg Young here. I think
Mm,
he has a ton of potential. I just love watching him bowl. I've said this before and I'll say again, he's silky smooth, especially for being such a tall guy. Makes it look easy. It's
that's
effortless.
true.
But I think they have to go with experience here, and that's why they'd go with Jason Sterner.
I like that pick. Sticking
I
with the
mean,
the
we
Brunswick.
talked about it with you. It's the Brunswick family, like Greg Young, um, but also he brings just experience. He's consistent. You know what you're getting out of him. Greg Young could be a little bit of a wild card, being his first time in the league, and especially since you already are taking Michael Davison, who is already a wild card. And to be honest, in real life, if he does get drafted, it's going to be the second round. I understand that. It's just the way I looked at the team and said they need power, and they're probably picking Brunswick. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah,
So as we said with Sterner, he's a good bowler. I mean, he works so hard. I mean, you see him on Facebook all the time posting his sessions. I mean, he's just such a hard worker, and I think on a team, I think that can make other people work hard as well. If they say, "I see this guy working hard, so I'm going to work harder," and it sort of snowballs there.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think going with Jason there is a really strong pick. Sticking with the Brunswick theme. Although of course, like we talked about earlier, they deviated with Brad Angelo and Rhino Page. And so I think that me going with Parker Brown the third as well was part of that Brunswick mindset. When Johnny Petraglia Jr. Being Johnny Petraglia Senior being the manager there. And so I chose to deviate a little bit from the Brunswick lineup, though, myself here, and my pick was Jake Peters, or my pick is Jake Peters. And that's somebody that I'm really excited about being part of the league this year. Really unfortunate story about his wife recently being diagnosed with cancer, I believe in November or December. And so it's really unfortunate to see something like that happen, but I'm really excited for him to be a part of the league yet again. And I think that he would be an incredible pick to throw on the Brooklyn Styles with Parker Bone the third and then the 3 reserve players. I think he'd be solid.
Definitely. I mean, after winning a title early in his career, he won a title before EJ won a title when he won the Badger when it was 52 feet.
Yes, that's right.
And then he just dropped off. So, but fortunately, it was good to see him make the Masters show last year. He was a stand-in for the league last year as well,
Yes.
and performed very well. And I mean, he's had a solid year this year. Um, from what I heard, basically he just started to practice more. Like he just practiced a lot more because that's what his wife told him, and he saw results. I mean, he's definitely got back to his former self, and I hope we can see him, whether it's the league or another show, see him back on television soon.
There you go. I completely agree. Yeah. And so now back to our last remaining team that was there last year is the Philadelphia Hitmen. And so, so far you have Ryan Simonelli joining Tom Smallwood, Don Barrett, and Sean Maldonado. So let's hear who you've got for your 22nd pick of our mock draft.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Canadian I talked about earlier, which is Patrick Gerard. Every time he's on TV, which has been at least once a year recently. He always just seems to have fun. He's extremely relaxed,
Yeah.
and he plays with the crowd. Even at I forget which show it was, but he just couldn't strike for his life, but just spared everything. And he was so relaxed. He was just having fun. And I mean, even then, I mean, his talent. I don't know what's clicked in the past 3 years, but he's started to put it together,
Yeah.
and I think he just fits their team. And sort of as we talked about, I think having Tom, Sean, and now Patrick, where they're all cool cats. They're just going to be relaxed. They're going to go up there, do their thing, have fun. I think he fits the team.
I agree. And throwing a little bit of international flair in there with Dom, I think is a really good idea. From any standpoint. Now I'll be honest. My next pick is somebody that I hadn't actually in my original notes for this. I had not considered even putting on a team, and I kind of feel that it was the wrong idea for me to do that because of how that you spoke of him just a minute ago, and I feel it's a really smart idea to throw him in for part of the Philadelphia Hitmen, and that is Gregory Young. I completely overlooked him in my notes, and I thought, hey, like, I think he'd really fit in to be part of the Hitmen here.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a young talent, and I think his future is only going to get brighter. I mean, he's made one of the Flow Bowling shows. I
Hmm.
know, you know how they do the Flow Bowling shorts where they talk about who's going to win, who's the player who hasn't won a title, who's going to win next. I know
Hmm.
his name came up a couple times.
Yep,
I think that just shows how, even though he's sort of unknown to a lot of fans, how the pros themselves look to him and say, yeah, he's going to be good.
absolutely. Yeah, I
And I
completely
think that
agree.
speak volumes.
I completely agree. And, nice to see that, and of course I went Oscar Palermo previously to mesh with Don Barrett. I think that Sean Maldonado and Gregory Young get along very well, or at least would on a team like this. I think that they would really complement each other. And then, of course, you got Tom Smallwood, who's an all around just incredible guy, from bowling to really anything that I've heard about him. So now we make our way back to the new teams, the Brew City Ballers, and then also the Las Vegas High Rollers. So let's kind of hear who you have for your Brew City Ballers to join your picks of Sean Rash, Brad Miller, and Packy Hanrahan.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are Bruce City here, you're really happy with who's still on the board. I think you got to go Chris Vi. I mean, he's made a couple shows the past few years, and it only seems like he's going to make more. I don't know when it's going to happen, but he's going to knock down that door and win a title soon.
Yeah, there you go. I think
I
that's a
think,
pretty solid pick.
honestly, I think he's someone we may have been undervaluing here.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a solid pick to go with Bruce City. I think him and Packy would work really well, and Brad that you have on your team there, just because they are all parts of the house, I believe. The famous house, and so I think that that's a really
Hmm.
good mindset for the gel of the team there.
So, what are you thinking here?
So for my 23rd pick, I think I'm going to kind of let's see. Let me look at the who's left here. I think I'm going to go with Anthony Lavery Spar. Let's
That
see.
is a solid pick. Has TV experience. He's fun to watch. I don't know how he does what he does.
Yeah,
That's for
absolutely.
sure.
Let's see. For those watching, the Anthony Lavery Spar is very long and doesn't quite fit on my blank, so I'm just going to put it up here. Okay. Yes. And I think Anthony is a very solid pick, and I mean, how can you not root for somebody that's made the 810 on TV? I mean, come on, like that's hard to do.
I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that was Sean.
Oh, that was Sean Lavery Spar. Dang it! I knew
Yeah.
I knew it was gonna get me whenever I started talking about one of the Lavery Spars. Darn, I knew it was gonna get to me. Yes, and
Yeah.
I've bowled against them both in several events throughout the years. Including this one on my head, the Lubbock Sports Open, or the Odessa regionals that I do here in
Hmm.
Texas every year. And so I vote against them. I know they're both very solid players. Anthony, I think would be a really good fit because personally, I have Andrew Anderson, Dick Allen, and AJ Johnson. I mean, that's a stacked team if I've ever heard one, in my opinion. And
I mean, normally expansion teams struggle for a couple years, but you're thinking, man, we can compete right away.
yeah, I want them to come out, like the Golden Knights did in the NHL, and be like guns blazing. Let's hit the ground running.
I think that's part of the reason why the PBA decided to expand is just
Hmm.
there's so much talent that these teams that are just starting and can't have any of the protected players are still going to be able to compete
I
with those
agree.
other teams because there's just so much talent right now, and hopefully it can continue to grow and we can continue to add teams.
I agree. I would love to see that. Let's see. Okay, so for the next one, we're going to be going to the Las Vegas High Rollers. So your picks so far have been Francois Lavoie, Dick Allen, and Darren Tang. So who do you got for your fourth pick of the team?
Yeah, we're going to go international again and go Christopher Salone.
Mm,
Uh, I honestly don't know a personal ton about him. I know he made a show and he did all right. But I know Chris Barnes speaks super high of him, and to me that means a lot. And even in the little that I have watched of him, especially this year, I felt like he made a lot of cuts where it's like, oh, I didn't realize he was here. Or, there he is again. So add that in to what Chris said, being international as well. I think it makes a lot of sense here, especially with having Frankie and Dick, who aren't exactly power players. You do now get a power righty.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. And personally, with me having chose, Sean Rash, Francois Lavoie, and Ryan Simonelli up to this point, it kind of gets me thinking about somebody that I want to kind of be the gel in there, and kind of bring the team together because you have a lot of very separate-minded people, in my opinion, with Francois, Ryan, and Sean. Um, and so I want somebody that's going to be a true kind of team player for them. And for me, that kind of speaks out as Michael Tang. Let's see. And I don't know
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on me kind of going with Michael there?
I think he has the potential to become that leader, that glue guy that we've talked about.
Hmm.
I personally don't know Michael well enough to say if he is that guy. He kind of seems like fun spirited, sort of living day by day, and I think it could mesh and just work, and they can combine and gel together. But I'm not sure if he's a vocal enough leader to become that, and I think he's still separate minded enough where he could actually just make things potentially more diverse than it already is and make it harder.
Ah,
Um, but I mean, I'm speaking for both of us. We don't know them well enough, and although I like watching Michael Bowl, there's a lot of guys I like watching Bowl.
yeah.
So I end up not watching him as much as I should.
Okay, yeah, that's a very valid point. And sticking with the Las Vegas High Rollers, as because of the snake draft, our next pick falls on them. So let's hear who you have to complete your team with Chris Sloan.
Yeah, so we're going to go international again, and we're going to go Pontus Anderson
Ah,
out of Sweden. I've always liked watching his game. It's a little different from everyone because he spins it,
he does. Yes.
which I think on a harder shot could be problematic, but the PBA league always tends to be an easier shot.
Hmm.
Him and Monticelli worked together in the Team USA versus the World, where he put on a pretty good showing overall for his first time on television. And I think he sort of just fits that international flair. It's someone Monticelli knows. And I think it just works.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a very good point to make there, and I think that's a very valid and great point. All right, so yeah, continuing on for the Vegas High Rollers, to finish up the team to complete it with my side of things with Michael Tang, Ryan Simonelli, Francois Lavoie, and Sean Rash. I really feel like Patrick Gerard fits kind of well in there. Add a little bit of Canadian flair. Again, with Francois also being on the team. And I think that he just is an overall light-hearted guy, very even keel kind of guy, as you said earlier, and very solid bowler.
Definitely. I mean, I really like the pick. There was a lot of times earlier I debated taking him earlier because he's really talented and has made, honestly, in this last year when I was watching Flow and looking at cuts, I mean, he impressed me a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think that his ball roll is really well for those easier shots, as you said. Bopo, the league is a little
Absolutely.
easier, so absolutely. All right, so now we're going to get into our last picks of the draft. What a sad moment. But we've had a lot of building up to this point, so I really want to hear who you have chosen to finish and complete the Brew City Ballers team with Chris Villa or Vi, Sean Rash, Brad Miller, and Packy Hanrahan.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go here. Um, I mean, there's a lot of potential for everyone. Like, I could go with Greg Young, who is someone I talked about.
Hmm.
But looking at the board and where they are right now as a player, I think you have to go with Zach Wilkins. We talked
Very.
about him earlier when you picked him.
Yep.
He's just been getting better and better every year, and it's hard to say with how good he is right now that you wouldn't want him on a team, especially looking at the board. I think he fills out that team nicely in that you can place him in pretty much anywhere you want.
Yeah, I would have to completely agree. A very well-rounded two-hander. Would go well with Chris, who you chose earlier, and then you've already got your lefty spot filled with Packy. I think that you built a really good team around Bruce City there.
Thank you very much. I think you've done an excellent job this draft as well. And I think you're going to finish it off strong as well.
Yeah, I'm going to take somebody that you did not choose in your entirety of your draft. Although as badly as I would like to see Matt McNeil play in the draft this year, I just I really debated whether I should go with Matt or whether I should go with this person, and
I also
ultimately.
debated about Matt.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I decided that they might not need to just go straight lefty just to have a lefty, as you said in the beginning. Where sometimes teams just go with a lefty just to have a lefty. I kind of deviated from that for Brew City, and instead I decided to give them Sam Cooley, the Australian.
I thought long and hard about Sam as well. Sam's a really talented player.
Yeah, and he has league experience. He played for the WTT Kingpins. Once again, my favorite team. Back in the day, a couple years ago, and has experience in the league. Definitely a good international player that is often, unfortunately, overlooked and hasn't had too much success in singles events recently, but has certainly been there in the past and has a lot of TV experience.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys. I feel like this keeps happening where you just watch him bowl and go, wow, how hasn't he won more?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it's a mental game, if it's the fact that he's traveling from Australia and it just de-energizes him. Um, but it just hasn't happened yet, and it's kind of surprising with how good he is. I honestly wonder. We talked about Ronnie Russell earlier, how he's trying to lower his tilt because he has a lot. When you watch Samble and you look at his ball roll, he has almost no tilt.
Yeah.
So I honestly wonder if having that no tilt with a lot of axis rotation is holding him back. And I wonder if either rolling the ball more or adding a little tilt, which both things are incredibly hard when you've done
Yep.
things one way for a long time,
Yep.
uh, could make him a better bowler. But I mean, just on a sheer potential and especially having that experience, I really like Sam as a bowler. I like watching him a lot, and I
Yeah,
think he
I
makes that
completely agree.
team really good.
Yeah, I love seeing Sam compete, even though it's not too often these days to be honest, but as far as the past is concerned, he has the TB experience. He's been on the league teams before. And I would be really excited to see him go. That was my last pick. Because I kind of figured, hey, like he would fit really well in. Like I said, as much as I'd like to see Matt McNeil on a team, I really feel like Sam with the experience kind of overrules that, and I think that he would be an overall great pick to finish out the draft.
Absolutely. So, who is the most surprising player that didn't get picked in your opinion?
Well, from your side of things, kind of looking over, um, man, I want to go either with a Ronnie Russell or a Gregory Young. Those two guys, as well as Parker Bone the third. But I understand Parker has kind of stopped with as much success as he's had in the past. Recently, so that one kind of makes sense to me. But I really feel like Gregory Young and Ronnie Russell were two that stuck out to me as I thought you were going to pick.
Yeah, I think on your end, just looking at the board, I mean, you tend to looking at. I have a point list in front of me. You tend to pick everyone in the top. Did you ever pick Nick Pate?
No, I actually did not. I did not choose Nick Pate.
Yeah, then that's by far got to be the most surprising for me. I think he's going to grow into a really talented bowler and make a lot of shows in his career.
Yeah, and for those wondering really quickly, let me go ahead and switch over. So these are the players remaining for my draft pool, as you see on your screen here. And the remaining players for Alex's draft pool, let me switch over, are these here. And so if any stuck out to you, please sure to let us know in the comments too. I'd really like to see some of those, or if there were some that you thought shouldn't have been chosen, or maybe should have definitely been chosen but weren't. Just let us
Michael
know in the
Davison.
comments. Mhm.
Yeah, that's definitely the most controversial pick out of all of us. There's a lot of legitimate arguments as to why he should not be picked, and especially in the first round. I get that, but just and it's not something I think is going to happen during the draft, especially not during the first round. But I mean, you just look at Brooklyn; they needed a power bowler,
Mhm.
and sticking with the Brunswick theme, I think he was the biggest power bowler Brunswick had, especially. I think on your, um, we keep calling them the Brunswick team, even though they're the Brooklyn Styles.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think who was on your Brooklyn Styles. I
It
mean, there's
was
obviously Walter, Brad, and Rhino.
yes, and Parker Bowlen the third and Jake Peters.
I think on a whole, that's a solid team, but I think they definitely lack that anchor. Like I think I'm not sure if Nicholas Pate is that guy, at least yet, but they definitely. I guess that's what I would complain about on your drafting is I definitely think they needed a power bowler to
Hmm.
balance out all that. I'm not sure what the right word would be. That accuracy type bowler, that control the pocket bowler.
I definitely understand what you're going for there, and I kind of the one team that stands out to me from your draft is definitely the WTT Kingpins. Going with Thomas Larson in the first round there for the WTT Kingpins, that really surprised me. No lie, and sticking with Michael Tang as the last one for you to go with Kyle Sherman, Marshall Ken, and P. Weber, that kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly a really big Thomas Larson fan. I think he's really underrated by the bowling world. He's another guy that I'm surprised hasn't won a title yet. But I'm always impressed with what he can do, whether it's playing the gutter, as we saw during the Cheetah one year, or remember that I think it was the bear pattern where they had the 9-person step ladder.
Absolutely.
And that pattern was so awful. Like no one could break
It's brutal.
180.
Yes.
It was brutal. And the fact that, I mean, obviously he made the wrong decision playing in instead of trying to play straighter. But even the fact that he's capable of doing that and have the confidence to do that is just really impressive to me.
Yeah.
And it shows that he's capable of it. If he wasn't, he wouldn't try it. So I think he really fits what New York needed, having Marshall Kent and Kyle Sherman, who are two guys that are really strong, really powerful, both work out a lot. And getting Thomas in there where, let's be honest, Pete can be sort of a wild card. I don't think either of us know what he's going to bring. It could be really good. It could be really bad. I think having Thomas there, Thomas gives you he's going to hit the pocket and he has high potential to strike.
It's a valid
I
point.
think he brings a consistency that team needed, since we've also seen Marshall at times be erratic and just lose the pocket.
Yep. Yeah, I would have to agree. Yeah. All right. Well, that pretty much.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was
Absolutely.
a blast.
Yes, the pleasure is mine, Alek. It was really nice to have you, to see you again. And like everyone out there, I really hope that it goes well for you guys through the rest of this, with everything going on in the world. So, best wishes with that. And, everybody out there that's watching, I hope you are all doing well and staying safe out there. And let's get through this thing. Be
That's
sure.
right. Stay inside.
Yes, that's right.
Also, happy Mother's Day.
Yes, we are recording this on Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day. Even though it'll be a couple days in the past whenever this gets uploaded, but happy Mother's Day for a couple days ago, technically.
That's right.
Yes, and thank you to everyone for watching. Be sure to subscribe below, leave a like, and leave a comment like we discussed about the whole if you think that a player should have been chosen or wasn't chosen and anything like that. Be sure to let us know. Other than
Also,
that,
how
guys,
Michael Davison was the worst pick of the draft in the first round. Let us know that too.
yes, that was. If that's not a shock, I don't know what is coming from Alek's draft pool there. And so, anyways, guys, thank you so much, and thanks again to Alek for joining me. It's been a blast. Everyone, have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.